Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Here for the October 4th version of the Technical Advisory Committee meeting. So thanks for everyone that could be attendance here in person. We have a couple action items that we need to take action on today. The first one is pretty significant, so I want to make sure we have time to do it. So first, are we doing roll call?
Yes, and I'll read it out for. Let's see, Jay Collins.
Here and I'm virtual.
Thank you. Danny.
Here.
She's here live. Mark Hudson.
Here.
He's here in the room, guys. Jonathan Scott.
Here.
Justin Willits. Justin maybe can't unmute. I don't know if I moved him over, but he is here virtually. Tony Garcia.
Present.
Jeff Sims.
Here.
Rick
Present.
He's Mike Williams, alternate. Gina. Here. Leland or John Patrick. Anna, I think I saw you online. Anna Quinones. I may not have moved people over that should have been moved over, but Anna is here and she's a member. And I'll do that. I'm kind of going through this quickly because we want to get to the action item. Just Troy Tinch, I didn't call him last time. I don't know if he's here for Temple Terrace. Okay. Brian Pissarro.
Here.
Mike English. He called in that he was going to be here remotely. I'll get back with the court reporter. Oh, if others show up, I'll let you know. And Nicole Sutton.
I'm here, but
I see you. Thank you. Okay, that's it there. Check on public comment because there's people that are sitting in.
Yeah, that's my next item. Okay, thanks, everyone. Next up is public comment. There's no one here in the room, so at this point, if there's anybody online virtually that'd like to speak, please announce yourself or go into the chat and make a comment that you'd like to have comments made. And I'll give you 15 seconds or something to do that.
And I do see Justin is online.
Hey, I'm good now. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Justin.
Sorry.
I don't see anybody in the chat
Okay.
asking to speak.
I am a public. Yeah. So. All right. Again, either raise your hand or type in something in your chat if you're from the public and wanted to speak. Otherwise, we're going to move on with the next item, which is approval of the minutes from the September meeting. They were part of the packet. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Move to approve from Danny. Please announce your name prior to approval or second. Do we have a second?
Jonathan Scott, second.
Thank you, Jonathan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to move forward with the first item, which is the TIP amendment, which is covering quite a bit of ground here. So I think this is one we need to really, as the committee, pay special attention to. There's several large-scale projects involved in this. So please be ready with any questions on the back end.
So Mike, if you could give Connor controls of the slides, that would be great.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Great.
Perfect. And you see my screen as well?
Yep.
Perfect. So Connor McDonald, TPO staff, here today to present the TIP amendments for fiscal year 2021-2022. These involve 3 different projects, one being the downtown interchange safety and operations adjustments, the next being the West Shore interchange reconstruction preliminary phase, and the third being traffic congestion management technology. I also have with me Justin Hall, I believe, from FDOT, Mary Lou Godfrey, and Claire Apolaski from HNTV on the chat or online to answer any questions in the end. So there's 14 amendments requested in this from the Florida Department of Transportation to add funds to the year 2022. The first is the downtown interchange, as I mentioned, the safety and operations adjustments, which includes 3 amendments for roughly $154 million. The next is the West Shore interchange reconstruction preliminary phase, which is 5 amendments for roughly $80 million. And the third being traffic congestion management technology for 6 amendments for roughly $24 million. So the first is the downtown interchange. Most of us who have driven the downtown interchange know its problems well. This includes the long congestion of lining up to get to the I-4 exit towards Orlando. And this congestion can sometimes go all the way back to Hillsborough Avenue. We also know that drivers often lane dive into the exit at the last possible second to avoid waiting in the congested line. And it also prohibits access to local exits, especially Florida, Nebraska, and occasionally even MLK. The downtown interchange is also cited in the long-range transportation plan as a priority for the region. So there are 3 proposed changes to alleviate these problems. The red is southbound I-275. The red is westbound I-4 to northbound I-275. The yellow being westbound I-4 to southbound I-275, and the blue being southbound I-275 to eastbound I-4. There are roughly 222 accidents annually within these arrows. These quick fix safety and operational adjustments will reduce the previously stated lane weaving and speeding, the congestion and lining up for the I-4 exit, and improve access to the local exits. FDOT is measuring that the downtown interchange will reduce deaths and serious injuries on I-275 near I-4 by nearly half, and a 14% traffic reduction on local streets. So continuing on the topic of traffic reduction on local streets, the downtown interchange is also planned to improve connectivity and safety on the local street network below. There's a proposed trail system that will connect the Tampa Heights Greenway project to Ybor and Encore development. Further, these improvements will complete streets under the interstate to connect these communities. The TIP amendments also intend to relieve some issues on the local network, like drivers driving too fast on and off the interstate ramps and difficulty in seeing at night. So some mitigation strategies include reduced lane widths and having a high emphasis on crosswalk markings on 14th Street from Columbus Drive to 14th Avenue and 14th Street from 14th Avenue to 13th Avenue. This slide shows the typical street sections for 14th and 15th Street. While FDOT is responsible for working on 14th Street, the City of Tampa has plans to improve 15th Street through a green spine project. These changes include sidewalk width from changing from 5 to 6 feet and lanes being narrowed. So this is the first amendment. This is what was adopted and then amended for roughly $26 million. It's amended from right-of-way acquisition to right-of-way and utilities, preliminary engineering, environmental care, and design build for a total of $26 million. This section is the westbound I-4 to northbound I-275. The next amendment is an addition of $60 million for westbound I-4 to southbound I-275. And the third amendment is the downtown interchange project is adding $66 million for the I-275 southbound off-ramp to I-4. These 3 amendments make up for roughly $154 million. The next group of amendments make up for the West Shore interchange reconstruction preliminary phase. These 5 projects are preliminary projects that make up for 1 out of 4 phases of the West Shore interchange. The West Shore Interchange has been a top regional priority for many years, and the changes are intended to reduce congestion and weaving at the intersection of State Road 60 and I-275. This will also complement the Howard Franklin Bridge reconstruction. The first project, westbound State Road 60, will construct one lane along the westbound State Road 60 from the George Beam Parkway to Courtney Campbell Causeway. This project has a total of around $36 million for utilities, preliminary engineering, environmental care, and the design build. The next project in this set of amendments will extend a new seawall and construct an adjacent shared use path along the north side of the I-275 causeway. This project has a total of nearly $37 million. The next project is Cypress at LaSalle Street. These two low volume roads are near business parks. They will be widened to enhance connectivity to two off-ramps and one on-ramp to the West Shore Tampa International Interchange. The project cost is estimated $3.6 million. Amendment 13 is West Kennedy Boulevard at West Kennedy Boulevard. It will allow for the construction of additional left and right turn lanes, one from eastbound Kennedy to eastbound Kennedy, the other from westbound Kennedy to westbound Kennedy. FDOT believes this will also facilitate traffic and mobility during future interstate construction, and the project has a total of nearly $2 million. The final West Shore Interchange amendment is a project to add a right turn lane from eastbound Boy Scout Boulevard to southbound Louis Avenue. This project has a total of around $527,000. Finally, the integrated corridor management or traffic congestion management technology will allow a traffic control management center to manage congestion among several key corridors. These corridors include Nebraska Avenue, Tampa Street or Florida Avenue, Hillsborough Avenue, Dr. MLK Jr. Boulevard, Boy Scout Boulevard, and Kennedy Boulevard. So these systems include advanced detection monitoring systems, dynamic message signs, and closed circuit television. They have the goal of making work zones safer and improving travel time reliability. Ultimately, they will deploy technology to allow engineers to see what's happening with traffic in real time. The first of these amendments is roughly $5 million for design and build on Florida Avenue or Tampa Street. The next is roughly $6 million for Nebraska Avenue from Kennedy Boulevard to Bears Avenue. Third amendment is to change funds roughly $4 million for design build of ITS systems on Kennedy Boulevard from West Memorial Highway to Ashley Drive. The fourth is Amendment 18 for funding, including $3.8 million of ITS systems on Dr. MLK Jr. Boulevard. The fifth is for $3.3 million for ITS systems on Hillsborough Avenue. And finally, the sixth in this set and the 20th amendment is for $1.6 million for ITS systems on Boy Scout Boulevard from Airport Service Road to Del Mabry Highway. As part of our public participation pilot, we're aiming to ensure the public has had the opportunity to voice their concerns and support before they come before the committees and board. One of our outreach projects came from the Long Range Transportation Plan outreach survey that received 5,200 responses. In this survey, respondents were given 4 options regarding the downtown interchange reconstruction. While the no-build score was higher in downtown areas and the full rebuild rating was higher in ex-urban areas, the safety and traffic quick fix option had the highest star rating overall and supported or unopposed by most zip codes. As part of the pilot, we also asked jurisdictions what sort of public outreach they have done. FDOT, in this case, has done significant outreach regarding downtown interchange since 2017. This has involved a series of community and neighborhood events, community working groups, and neighborhoods and stakeholder presentations. As part of the pilot outreach, the TPO has also done outreach for these projects. We posted 6 signs along the proposed projects and also conducted social media outreach. With that, the recommended action today is to approve the amendments to the fiscal year 2021-2022 TIP and recommend approval to the TPO board. I'd also like to provide Ms. Godfrey's information. She's a project manager for the Tampa Bay Next project and my information as well. With that, I open the floor for any comments or questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Connor. As I mentioned, this is covering some large scale projects. So is there any comments from the committee at this point?
I'll wait till the meeting members.
Yeah, I'll give everyone a minute. I mean, for me personally, I know we've seen most of these changes. This looks more of the regards of, budget and so forth on them. So I can't say enough that I speak for everybody that the at least designs to try to improve the interchange at I-4 and 275 would be definitely needed just from observation in multiple different directions. So I'm glad that it's continuing to move forward. They did mention in the summary that you would address questions regarding noise walls, landscaping, and walk-by treatments. I mean, you kind of covered the trails and so forth. I don't know if you're ready right now to speak about the noise walls and so forth, but I just want to, if you are, great. If not, I just, for me personally, want to make sure that those items remain a focus. Specifically for the community, the residents in that area, the noise walls can definitely have an improvement for their quality of life, and more evidence about landscaping around these roadways and their benefits are being shown. So certainly any opportunities to add the landscaping, we would like to see, at least me personally, would like to see endorsed and move forward. Danny, did you have a question? Or?
I just wanted to say that was a great presentation, Connor. I really appreciate how in the summary of this item that most specifically referenced that this is addressing the top 20 Vision Zero corridor. So we certainly appreciate the focus on safety improvements. That's it.
Can you guys address the noise wall question or request?
Yeah, I don't mind doing that. Johnny Wong, TPO staff, TAC, and everyone. I told Connor that I would answer as many questions as I can about the project because most of this conversation took place before he started. By the way, his intro, he's the newest TPO employee, and he's on my team, and I'm very happy to have him. A couple months back, Mary Lou gave a presentation on the DTI aesthetics package to, I believe, all the committees except for the CAC, and included among some of those commitments was a noise wall that has some like aesthetic look to it. It's going to try to blend in with the context of the interstate wall wherever possible. I don't have specific details about what benefits that noise wall gives, but anyway, I guess the point is that DTI committed to putting noise walls in.
Just follow up, Jeff?
Yes, Gina.
And I prefer to go after the committee members, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of comments. So as a resident, all of these things, and also very sensitive to the concerns that the citizens have had for years. I just really want to give DOT a big kudos for compromising with all of the requests that you got from the citizens on this project. It's the operational compromise is fantastic, and the noise walls will be great. This is the first time I'm hearing this, of course, the presentation, and there are only two things that I have questions on are Cypress Street and the Boy Scout. Anytime you're adding lanes, adding a turn lane, I'm hoping that there'll be LPIs or something, at least at the Boy Scout, because that does kind of cross over to the International Mall. Cypress Street, I don't remember exactly, you don't have to go to that slide, but where exactly that additional lane is, I guess it's by the highway, because it's such an active bike ride out to Cypress Point that I hope it doesn't impact, the ability for people to bike over it, those on and off ramps, whatever's changing there. It's just a thought when it gets to the design that DOT spend a little time on that design. And lastly, the integrated corridor management makes a lot of sense so that, you can keep traffic going, but living off of Nebraska Avenue, I like that it kind of doesn't flow too quickly and that the people are stopping a lot along the way. I just hope it doesn't integrated corridor management isn't like it is downtown where all of a sudden everything is just green and you go for it and fly down the roadway just to get past, where the construction is going to be. So these aren't really, this is not to poke holes in anything. This looks really great. It's just thoughts that when it comes to implementation of the DOT will consider.
Great, thank you, Gina. Oh, sorry, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I did want
This is
to.
Rick Perez, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, Richard Perez. I also want to echo that great presentation. I'm glad that you incorporated at least some discussion about the green spine for the bike ped connections and, overall the moving forward with operational and safety improvements are important. But if you could or are able to maybe speak a little to how the green spine at 15th and those other pedestrian improvements tie into the larger network. It'd be interesting to hear if you're able to speak a little bit more about that.
Not sure I caught all that question. I think I heard you say that you want to hear a conversation about how the green spine connects to the larger trail network. Is that right?
That's
I'm going to have to defer to anyone in the room representing the city of Tampa. I'm not sure if I saw Danny come in, but I don't have details on the green spine project.
I can speak. So are you looking at the overall alignment of the green spine or?
Well, I saw in the illustration where those improvements on that green spine as it relates to this project area, but where is it continuous and connects to, a larger alignment? I mean, I know
Yeah.
Tampa's making a lot of improvements, Segway, but, closer into downtown, but how does that connect to downtown, for example?
So the green spine exists through downtown, and then we had a recent section completed on the west side that was kind of a goes with for a stormwater project, so you can see that out to Rome. And then the most recent section along Nuccio is pretty much complete. So you can drive by and see that, and then we've been working very closely with FDOT, looking at the design for around like the 14th, 15th, and how kind of loop and how we make sure that the visibility on cyclists is as great as possible. So that second.
I think so.
Okay, I can share more information with you about, our project fact sheet or anything else if you'd like.
Right.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for the question. Do we have any more questions or comments? Okay, Connor, could you back the PowerPoint slide up to where the recommended action is? And Johnny, do you know if this topic is going in front of the ITS committee in 10 days? Because I'd like them to weigh in on the traffic congestion management, if they had any pointed questions.
I think we received this tip amendment a little too late to include in the ITS agenda, but Jeff, let me touch base with Vashaka, the liaison, and see what we can do. I don't want to say no because anything's possible, but I'm not really sure if we included that on the agenda.
Okay, I mean, I don't, certainly not mandatory or anything from our end. I just thinking that group might have a little bit more specific questions about that one aspect above the others. So even if it's not the formal full presentation, maybe just that little aspect of it, if that could get in there, just to see if there's anything that they would want to offer that's relevant.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that and no further questions or comments, can I get a motion to approve the amendment?
This is Danny. I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Can I get a second?
Gina Evans, second.
Gina, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for the presentation. Okay, next item up is
It's me.
it's
And
Gino with
my
the flashing meetings.
Goes back to the podium, I'll just show a picture. It's okay. We'll just do this by consensus, that if there's any opposition to what we're suggesting or, people have a problem with it. Because Mark just left the room.
Right.
Anybody out there doesn't realize why we're talking about this. But this is asking for an action from you guys. So, and I want to show this picture. I'm not doing PowerPoint. So in your packet, you may see, or at least have looked at this. We are asking you guys to support us sending a letter, and maybe even your own agencies or personally. But it's about rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So I'm going to call them RRFBs from now on, but they're traffic control devices that are designed to increase driver awareness of pedestrian crossings, bring their attention that there's pedestrian crossings. They're usually at marked mid-block crossings or uncontrolled intersections. And the beacon for the RFBs is like an amber color, it's an LED, and they're required to be installed below these pedestrian warning signs. So this is important because of what the legislation is trying to change. These RFBs are much cheaper. They're really a cost-effective measure. They're about $20,000 or so on average to install, as opposed to a hawk, which you might have seen when the light is on a mast arm and it goes over the whole street. That's about $200,000. So that's a pretty big difference for being such an effective tool. Hillsborough County has about 170 of these. Pinellas County has about over 300 actually. I don't know if you've been on Gulf Boulevard. They're all, all over the place there and in different places. They're really effective. They were doing studies that the motorists, when you had a crosswalk, there was an 18% response at crosswalks for motorists, and it became an 88 response when there was an RRFB there. It's got a proven traffic safety record. Fatalities reduced by 47%, which is why the federal highway in there, we call those in the business, call these their spectacular 7 countermeasures to pedestrian fatalities, but it's one of the 7 best tools in the toolbox to making pedestrian travel safer. And locally, we have a great example on Fletcher. I mean, some other things were done on Fletcher, but there's a lot of mid-block crossings. And 46% reduction in injury crisis, 60% reduction in fatalities on Fletcher where that project was done. So these are really effective. There was a fatality, and it was heartbreaking, as all fatalities are, and that is what kind of prompted this legislation. A girl did, she was 12, she pushed the button and proceeded across, and a motorist did not stop, and maybe, we don't blame Envision Zero, so there's things that could have been different on either side of this, but we also don't know how many lives have been saved by these. I mean, we have an idea, we can project that, but lives have been saved by these, and it's really sad that this life was lost there, but let's not throw out this great tool, let's make it better. So the bill, this is the 3rd time it's being introduced, and we've heard that sometimes the 3rd time's the charm. But the idea in this bill was kind of dictating some things that probably won't fly with FHWA and the manual on uniform traffic control devices. Like, they're not going to necessarily do this, and definitely not in time. But they're wanting, the legislators want them to coordinate it with the traffic signals, and these aren't those kinds of light, you can't coordinate those. They were suggesting that the light color be changed to red. Again, this is it. In order for those kinds of changes to happen, it takes a lot of research and making sure that this is, valuable and valid changes. And then the legislation says if you can't do it by this certain time, which is only a couple of years away, you have to remove them. And we know they work. They're in communities of concern. It's just not the best approach to making them better. So there are some things that, maybe could be done, just more defined location of where these are and having engineers sign off on them. So we don't think it's a good bill. So not only us, but there's a lot of regional support. There's a letter that was attached to your packet from the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, which used to be TBARTA. That has 5 MPOs, TPOs, several cities, and even the Institute of Transportation Engineers have signed on that they are opposed to these 2 bills. One's in the House, one's in the Senate. So we just want support from our committees that our TPO board can send a letter. It's the same letter, basically. It might be a couple word changes here and there, and even have you guys consider sending letters from your agencies as well. So that's it. And since we don't have enough reform, as long as there's not opposition from anybody, and those of you online, that's how we'll move forward.
Consensus. Okay. Do we have any comments from the committee or questions?
Just
Gina?
for comment, this bill the testimony is horrifying. And it's very moving when the family comes up. And so this was, one of those pieces of legislation where I think that even though the members understood the concerns from the transportation and the engineers, the emotion of the family it was heartbreaking to sit in the room and listen to the family testify on this. And, sometimes it's not ideal legislation. It felt like the right thing to do.
Exactly.
Members, even though it wasn't, and these are safer. They're more cost effective. They're easier to put in, like all of those boxes. But at the end of the day, it's just that raw emotional testimony that just gut-wrenching to hear it. I can't,
I know.
just even be in the room
Actually,
and vote on it.
It reminds me of Melissa Wanville, whose husband died with a red light running camera, and that's a bill that's on there. And she just told her story of her husband. She was pregnant with her daughter, who just is in college now. So it's now they're trying to remove those cameras, and those are effective. And she's asking for those too. So I know it's very hard. So do you think that we should move forward with?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just providing some like context of like, while it makes sense for this technical advisory group and engineers, that's not always what ends up. Because I do think that they're effective, and I do think they have a place, especially we live in South Tampa and Bayshore, on Bayshore, that how much they've improved over there. And like you said, in other, lower income areas where they are much more cost effective to put in. And when I think that the legislation probably does need some tweaking exactly for that reason, is that these do save lives. They're much more effective, easier to put in.
How do you campaign and say, here's my grandson, and he's pushed the button and he's alive? Like, how do it's like it's hard to just point out how many lives kids and adults have been saved by these without making them, feel bad. But it would be really hard financially and crash-wise to have these taken out. I think that's where we're really struggling.
No, I totally agree.
Well, I appreciate the perspective, because I don't know the history, and I read this, and my first thought was, who would want to take them out? I mean, like, why would we want to take out something that's proven to have an effectiveness? Now, hearing that, I have a much better perspective as to the rationale, as to why, and I'm very, very sensitive to that. But at the same point, these are a technology that's likely saved injuries and lives, and they're already in place. And I mean, what are they suggesting? We take them out and not go back with nothing, or this is better than nothing. I mean, at a minimum, if they wanted to push the legislation through, I would maybe suggest a grandfather clause where they allow the ones that are in place to remain, and then maybe new legislation says future ones maybe meet different requirements or something like that. That would seem like a reasonable compromise. But I'm comfortable with the idea. I travel Fletcher quite a bit, and I've seen the improvements there, and Bayshore on occasion. And I just can't think that overall it's a benefit to what the alternative would be. So I don't know if that's my opinion. I don't want to speak for the committee, so certainly offer anything else out. But in my mind, I would support the letter to try and keep these in place, especially with the volume that we have in Hillsborough and Pinellas, and I'm sure in the other surrounding counties too. So anyway, that's my comments, but I'm certainly open to any more comments from the rest of the committee.
So if I don't hear opposition or anyone online on the committee, we'll go ahead and suggest the appeal board a letter.
Right, just to make sure everybody understands, one of our members for the quorum had an appointment, so he had to leave. So we're short of quorum, so we can't do a formal motion. So I believe what Gina's saying is that we can essentially approve by consensus as a recommendation unless anybody has specific objection to sending the letter. So does anybody have an objection? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you guys
Excuse me, this is the clerk. I just wanted to confirm for item A, I had Jorgensen and Evans on the motion. Is that correct?
For the first one, the motion was by Danny Ferguson, and the second was by Gina.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we threw the action items now, and we're ready to go on to status reports. And the first one up is the FDOT freight update.
So Mike, if Brian Hunter is ready, I think we'll hand the screen over to him. Brian, are you there? I didn't remember seeing you. Yes. Question answer. Okay, we can see your screen.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Oh, sure can.
All right. So my name is Brian Hunter. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm the freight coordinator and in the Office of Modal Development. So the mission of the Department of Transportation includes the need for us to ensure the safe and reliable mobility of people and goods. So the goods movement industry here in the state of Florida supports 1.75 million jobs. And so in order to support that investment, we've undertaken a number of initiatives recently. And today I'm going to give you a recap of some of those initiatives. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. So the first of those is we recently updated our freight priorities. So we had done this back in 2018 where we had updated them and we took a new look at them, incorporated some of the improvements that have already been made, and we broke them out into two categories this time so we could better focus on the capacity improvements as well as operational improvements. So on the left side of your screen, you'll see that's our capacity improvements. A lot of those include the TB Next program. We also have truck parking facilities, which I'll talk about later, and also some grade separation projects like the causeway at US 41 south of Causeway at the CSX railroad tracks there. And then on the operational side, we have a bunch of interchange improvement projects along I-4 east of 75, as well as things like State Road 60 at Dover Road and US 41 at State Road 60. If you want to take a little more in-depth look on these, you can go to tampabayfreight.com, and these are on that website. Another initiative that we've been putting a lot of effort into lately is the National Highway Freight Program. This is a statute or a formula program from FHWA. They give the state of Florida about $60 million a year. And so we apply to central office for projects, and we've been relatively successful. So far, we've gotten 72 million. We just found out a couple days ago that we are going to get approximately 25 million in other projects that are not listed here on the screen. But a lot of these projects are on the interstate because it is limited to the National Highway Freight Network, which is designated by FHWA, and it's pretty much all of the interstates in the district except for 275 south of the Ulmerton area. We do have a couple intermodal connectors that take you down from I-4 down to like Pendola Point area. And so we have one off system or off interstate project at the grade separation at US 41 at CSX. We also recently completed a freight bottleneck analysis. When we start doing freight planning, one of the things that always comes up is where are we going to get our data from? Freight data seems to be relatively expensive. And so we try to look at what free and readily available data sources are available out there. We analyzed all those data sources, and the RIDIS database seemed to be the best. And so we took that data, we analyzed it in a manner that would allow us to repeatedly and cost effectively go in and update the analysis so that we can, if we put in a solution, we can see, did it work? Did it remove that as a bottleneck? If it didn't, we can analyze what we need to do better next time. And so we removed all the interstates from the analysis because we have a lot of interstate analysis that goes on naturally and a lot of interstate programs. So these are our top 10 that are non-interstate related. And as you can see, a majority of those are in Hillsborough County. And some of these did wind up on our updated freight priority list. And so we are currently in the process of looking at these and determining what solutions would be appropriate for these areas. And one of the ways that we potentially can address those issues is with our freight operational improvement program. So this is a program, we have a $2 million budget on an annual basis, and we use a push button design build contract to make these improvements. So I go out and I'll talk to truck drivers, transportation managers at warehouses, and they'll tell me where they're encountering operational issues. So it could be a turn radius issue, it could be a median that every time they make a left-hand turn, they pop up on the median, or there's not enough refuge space in a median for them to be there safely. Or it could be, we just need to extend a queue length a little bit. So we get those issues in, we evaluate them for cause, we evaluate them to make sure they're legitimate issues, and then we put them in a prioritization process. And once we have prioritized them, they go into this. So we'll do a conceptual design and then pass it off to the push button design build team to do. So far, we've been able to make 13 improvements. You can see them on the screen, and I'll give you a little more information on 2 of them that are located here in Hillsborough County. So the first one is State Road 39 at 39A, which is just north of I-4 in Plant City. And so one of the complaints we were getting at this was that the trucks who were making the northbound to southbound left-hand turn off of 39A were having conflicts in that median area. So the conceptual design put in a median island to provide a safe refuge for them. And we also heard that trucks making that U-turn movement were off tracking. So we put in a pavement bulb out. The one on the bottom of the screen is State Road 60 at 34th Street, which is just north of like the Port Tampa Bay area near CSX Intermodal Yard. This is a very heavily industrial area. And so the issue there was for the southbound to westbound turning movement. Trucks were either having to make a choice of popping up on the pork chop or onto the sidewalk. So our project's going to go in and remove the pork chop, make some additional pedestrian accommodations out there, and increase the turning radius as well. We are also going to resurface the intersection. You can see it in the darker color because there's pretty severe rutting. Some of those ruts out there are 6 to 8 inches deep. So this is the before and after for State Road 39 at 39A. This was completed last year. So on the left-hand side, you can see the before condition, and on the right-hand side, you can see the after, where we put in the median island and the pavement bulb out. The one at State Road 60 at 34th is in design right now and should go out to construction in the next couple of months. Another thing that we've been undertaking is freight sub-area studies. We have done 2 of them so far, and the intent of these sub-area studies is to look at these areas that have pretty heavy industrial activity in them and look at the existing activity, what types of improvements do we need to support existing, but also these are older industrial activity or industrial buildings that are in these areas. And so industrial development has really changed in the last 10 to 15 years. We used to have 20-foot clear height was the standard. Now we're looking at 40 feet inside of these buildings. They've also quadrupled the amount of truck bays that each one of these warehouses will have. So we have these areas that have some industrial properties that are reaching the end of their useful life. What happens if those are redeveloped? What is going to happen to the transportation network? What improvements will we need to make then? So we go into these areas, we do an analysis of what the existing and the future conditions can be. We come up with a list of proposed improvements. Some of those we will address through the push button design build if they're relatively small. If they're a little larger and there's a construction project going through on the corridor, we'll try and incorporate them there. And if not, then maybe we create a separate project. So far we've done 2 of these. One is Sabal Park, as you can see on the screen. It's basically from I-75 to Orient Road, and then from Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard on the northern end down to the Crosstown Expressway. And then we also looked at Drew Park, which is basically north and east of Tampa International Airport. So we've gotten a lot of good recommendations out of those, and we're looking at how we can implement some of those and working with the city and the county, figuring out how to do that. And then one of the things that's gotten a lot of national attention lately is truck parking. And we do have a lack of truck parking facilities here in the Tampa Bay region. So we're trying to address that in 2 different ways. The first way is through expanding our rest areas. The 2 rest areas that are on I-75 south of Sun City Center in southern Hillsborough County, they're currently under construction. We're going to add approximately 130 truck parking spots for a total of around 200 at those 2 combined. And then the second way that we are going to address that is through the building of a new truck parking facility, as you can see here on the screen. So this is in the southwest quadrant of County Line Road at Interstate 4 or I-4. If you haven't been out to County Line Road recently, I recommend taking a drive down that, and you'll be amazed at how many warehouses are now up out there. There's probably 15 million square feet that's along County Line Road now. So we are in the process of acquiring the property. We close the middle of this month on that property, and we have design for fiscal year 23 and construction in fiscal year 27. And so this project will build a new truck parking facility that'll accommodate about 120 truck parking spots out there. And it's very close to a truck fueling station. There's a Wendy's and McDonald's. There's also a hotel to the south. And so there's a lot of services that truck drivers can access from this facility. And so we want them to be in a safe and secure facility, not parked on the side of the shoulder. And hopefully this will take up some of the need that's out there. And the last project I'm going to talk to you or tell you about is the State Road 60 at CSX. It's the road that, or 62nd Street, that provides access to the CSX intermodal facility. It is a City of Tampa road. It's pretty narrow. It is substandard for the amount of trucks that just go on that road on a daily basis. It's pretty potholed. So we are using some CIS quick fix connector funds to make improvements to that road. We're partnering with the City of Tampa. They've been a great partner on this project and helping us move it forward. And so we're going to resurface the road. We're going to make a lot of drainage improvements out there. And we're also going to put a 12-foot concrete shared use path on the west side. And then, as always, we like to end these with a safety message. If you drive, you're going to have interactions with the truck, and they have much different operating characteristics than cars do. So their blind spots are pretty big. So please do not hang out in the no zone. I know you guys have seen all this before, but it's an important reminder and something to keep in mind when you're out there. And that is it.
Thank you, Brian.
Anybody have any questions?
I know I have one or two, but I'll ask the committee if they have any comments they'd like to offer. No? Okay. Real quick on the 62nd Street that you just talked about, is that off of Highway 60 directly?
No, it's actually off of Broadway in Columbus.
Okay, that's good. Is that?
I was up there, 62nd Street, had a brain thing.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I just was questioning a little bit because I know that's one of those kind of rougher areas where there's a lot of industry, yet there's residential right on top of it. So it's a difficult aspect to deal with because there's a lot going on there. So I guess just in general, any comments to improve the throughway but reduce the impact, you know, if nothing else by, you know, limiting speeds and so forth, you know, would be encouraged, but I know that's a difficult area.
Absolutely. That's been one of the things that the city has brought up numerous times. They've been great when working with us and making sure that we can do that, where we provide the pedestrian and bicycle accommodations along that corridor that also serves a pretty heavy industry. So.
Okay, and it's also, you know, and I guess also, you know, any accommodations to keep the traffic moving through and not having trucks, you know, back and, you know, they're right next to these residential homes in some cases, and they're getting in a line and just idling and rumbling, and then you've got people in these older homes that are just trying to live with that, and they're, you know, the noise and the emissions and so forth can be an impact. And I know you're limited on what you can do. I'm certainly not trying to say that's your task entirely. You're all about getting stuff moving, and I appreciate that. But I just kind of throwing it out there to keep that concept of when trying to minimize the impacts to residential areas. And kind of actually, that was my other question, was related to the parking, the truck parking facilities that you're looking at. I don't know a whole lot about freight movement, but I've done a fair amount of traveling, and I would imagine, yeah, I think Hillsborough does need more areas for parking because I see them in other parts, other counties and so forth, and I don't recall seeing many here. So I certainly wouldn't be surprised to hear you say we'd like to offer that capability for more trucks to be able to stop overnight and meet their requirements for off time and so forth. My concern, especially from the environmental side, is the location of these, and kind of again going back to their impact on potential residential areas. I know the one on County Line Road, I'm really familiar with the area. Probably, I'm glad to hear it's by the interstate. Obviously, you did that for freight movement, but there's, you know, less residential around there. But I don't know exactly how close the nearest residents are. But if you have, you know, 100 trucks idling, you're talking about a lot of potential noise and a lot of emissions that can drift right into a neighborhood. So any kind of buffer, any kind of means to reduce that impact, even noises, even walls on the borders, they'll have nominal effect, but, you know, it would improve a hard wall as opposed to you know, a chain link fence would certainly improve security and a little bit of reduction to those areas off of those. And then landscaping also. Landscaping would be a big help to help filter some of those emissions and provide things, and again, create a little bit of buffer. So I know I'm kind of going on and on here, but that was, when you said that, that was the first thing I thought about, is the noise and the idling and the emissions from a concentrated group of trucks like that. And the lights too, by the way, that we don't really get into with the light pollution, but we've had issues where people complain to us about trucks, you know, and they have to see, but they, you know, they're turning and then it's going into neighborhoods and they're off and on, they're seeing these white lights. So maybe that's another thing to consider, is the route that they would take to park. So maybe you could have the ability on the design phase to make sure they're not facing towards that, if that's capable. Just things to think about. I mean, hopefully you've already thought about those things, but this is a forum to bring it up. So.
Yeah, we're lucky. The parcel is it's entirely surrounded by industrial and commercial property. So a lot of those issues are taken care of through osmosis.
Right. I don't recall there being too much residential. I do remember the hotel, and so you are talking about potential gathering there, but I don't remember too much residential. But I haven't studied the map. This is the first I've seen about it. And again, it makes sense that we would be needing to add something like that, because I don't know it being here. It's just, you know, just consider those things when you you know, going through the approval projects.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, with that, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you, Brian, for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, next item up is the Pasco County project update.
And Tina, I don't know if you have a PowerPoint, but Mike, do you, Tina?
I'm here.
Do you have a PowerPoint you need to take control of the, or is he giving it to you?
Yeah, hop on here then.
There you go. I see your
Got
screen.
it?
I see your desktop. Oh, you have a couple screens.
Yeah.
You have to pick. Yeah, that happens. Slide it over maybe. Sabal?
Let me try this again, because you're showing. That make any difference at all there?
It sure did. Got it.
Yeah, it's weird because we use WebEx and it goes it uses the opposite screen. So so thank you, Tina Russo, active transportation planner for Pasco MPO. Just wanted to give you an update on some projects that probably kind of are good for Hillsborough County as well. First off, I want to let you know that we have as of August, we had over 463 active site plans going on in Pasco County and 40 multi-plan developments, some very large ones going on in Pasco County. Our project management services have over 107 current projects that they're working on, roadway projects. But I just wanted to go over a few of our projects, bike ped, that we're working on that really really proud of, and kind of all deal with the Orange Belt and the Suncoast Trail basically that you guys might be interested in. So some of those projects. So first one is our overpass at Suncoast Trail in 54. It's one of our Penny for Pasco projects. So it's been in the works probably for quite a few years. But the good news is this project is in design right now and should begin construction sometime next year. And this again will be over 54, just to the west of the current Suncoast Parkway, and it will be for the Suncoast Trail. There is another project, 52 Penny for Pasco, that has the overpass for Suncoast Trail. That'll be another year or so out, but it will be very similar to this design at 52 and the Suncoast Trail. The next one is our Orange Belt Trail. It's several different segments. The original concept of the Orange Belt Trail would be all the way from the very southwest corner of Pasco County, right at the Pinellas County line, and will extend all the way up to the northeast corner of Pasco County and connect to the Withlacoochee. And we have a current project I'm going to share with you that is the Withlacoochee extension, which actually connects the Hardy Trail to the Withlacoochee to 301. So this project, these three segments are funded. So this will get us to the Suncoast Trail. We have a Sun Trail application in for the piece that will go over Suncoast Parkway and then make that other connection to the east. So this is that first phase that we're talking about, and that's the piece that basically follows Trinity Boulevard to Cattle Gap, which is behind the Publix near Gun Highway. This is in design right now, and those are Sun Trail funds that are available in fiscal year 25 for construction. We will have a mid-block crossing of 54 just east of Community Drive. We're trying to avoid building overpasses for our projects from this point on, if we can, by design. And that second piece is the next piece connecting from that piece that I just showed you, which will be basically parallel with 54 and just north of it, and it will connect basically Starkey Ranch development with several different facilities in it, multi-use path, bike lanes, and that will connect to the Suncoast Trail just about a mile and a half north of 54. This is on Tampa Bay water easement. Basically, this is very similar to a future Tower Road alignment as well. We're going to build the trail first. And that phase 3 is the Trinity piece that goes basically from the Pinellas County line to Cool Springs Parkway. So all these three connections, three pieces will connect together for a complete alignment of a trail. We don't want to build segments that aren't going to be connected to anything. And then the rest of this Orange Belt Trail that I told you about. You can see those little pin drops from the southwest corner of the county to the northeast corner of the county. We have a current route study in place to try to figure out those in-between dots. Our biggest question is basically east of 75 from 52 north to make that final connection up to that northeast corner there. A couple other smaller projects that are penny for Pasco projects. We have this 5A Boulevard, which will actually connect Little Road to 19. The Withlacoochee Extension, which I told you about. We have a current trail called the Hardy Trail. This will be a southern piece that connects that trail to the 301 trail, and then a northern piece that will connect that Hardy Trail to the Withlacoochee Trail. And again, we talked about our overpass at 52, a Moon Lake Trail, which is actually, this piece is kind of important because the next project I'm telling you about is our Ridge Road extension. Ridge Road is a road that's connecting our Moon Lake, the Cumulus, to Suncoast, and it will have a beautiful multi-use path alongside of it and bike lane. So this is going to be a big connector for us in the future. Let me scoot down and get this next picture. So this is Ridge Road extension, has 15 overpasses of it. It goes through some sensitive land. It's been in the works for quite a few years. This is the overlook at the 15th overpass as we almost get to Suncoast Parkway, and it is basically off the multi-use trail. Beautiful vista from this overlook. And then that next picture next to it is how the interchange for Ridge Road and Suncoast Trail will look in its final design. And it will all be signalized. Every crossing of the trail and the roadway will be signalized by a regular signal. And that is about it for me. If you have any questions.
You know,
Go ahead, Gina.
I'm jealous. I just thought, I mean, Pasco has this, the Withlacoochee and the Suncoast. The Orange Belt Phase 2 that connects Starkey to the Suncoast. I didn't hear if you said that is are these funded with the penny Pasco?
So the Orange Belt is funded by one Central application and then several penny for Pasco.
Is it really going to be constructed like in the next handful of years?
I can't hear you real well.
Do you know when we might see this constructed?
So all three of those segments should be under construction within the next 3 to 5 years.
Thank you.
We have a Central application in, like I said, for that piece over Suncoast Parkway. There is existing trail already on that east side built by Bexley Ranch. So we're really hoping to get these pieces on the ground to kind of move forward with that next piece. And we also want to use future penny for Pasco, which is up in the next couple of years, to kind of fill in the rest of that piece to the east.
Okay, great. Do we have any other questions from the committee? Can you go to the last slide, please?
So the very last one.
I mean, for me, I'm certainly not nearly as familiar with Pasco County, but kind of like Gina, it's exciting to see all the projects you have going on. And certainly I represent the environmental group, our agency locally here. So we endorse trails and people getting out and not, driving combustion engines and getting exercise. So, obviously my one comment as the chair of this would be to do anything possible to connect these to Hillsborough trails, which I'm sure you're already doing. But it's just exciting to see it. Yeah, I was just looking at this. That looks like, are they doing a divergent diamond on that crossing there?
Yeah, and what's unique about Ridge Road and the Suncoast Trail is because of the wildlife concerns. There's going to be a lot of fencing there, but also Turnpike owns the Turnpike Park, and then we have the other piece, everything to the west of that right away for Suncoast is all conservation land. So it was a lot of different hoops to jump through to get this interchange done correctly. The engineer that does our project, Sam Bennett, in fact, he just won Bicycle Professional of the Year award for FBA, has done just a tremendous job at working at these intersections. You know, we all know that on and off ramps are really fun to negotiate when it comes to cycling, especially when it comes to the Suncoast Trail. People are been used to this 10 miles without a single stop. So we try to make it as safe as possible. If you haven't heard, just to the east of Suncoast Parkway at this location, Project Arthur, which is Moffett, is going to be as big as the city of Tampa, just on the east side of this project.
Well, I mean, I guess now is the try to plan on the front end where you can. That sounds like what you're doing. So that's smart. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing everything to preserve the habitats and the land over there. That's a big plus for project design. So thank you for that. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Okay, with that, I think we're going to move on. I very much appreciate your presentation, Tina.
Thank you.
All right, next item up is the state of the system.
So this is the clerk again. Can we confirm the identity of the member that left for the appointment?
Mark Hudson.
All right, thank you.
Gina emailed you, Joe.
Hello, good afternoon, committee members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, this is Vishaka Shivaraman, TPO staff, and today I'm going to be giving you a quick update on the state of the system report that we have been working on since the beginning of this year. Like you all know that state of the system report measures the TPO's performance, and we track the system, how it performs over the period of years, and also in terms of safety, mobility, accessibility, and traffic congestion. So unlike the previous years, this year we have been updating it since 2018, and the data includes up to the end of 2020. So today is just a status update. We have been trying to use a tool this time, and it is a dynamic tool which will help you to see. We have built the tool, the state of the system report, as a dashboard version, and you will be able to see how the different performances are measured in a series of maps, data tables, and you're also having the capability of exporting the data for your use. And this will be available for our partner agencies when it's complete. Like I said, we are still in the process of completing the update to the dashboard. And today I have with me Danish Saeed. He's the analytics manager from Urban SDK. Urban SDK is our agency that we've been using them for building the tool for us. And he will also try to give you a quick demo of the tool. So let me hand it over to Danish. Do we have Danish here? Okay, I think looks like he's a presenter.
Danish, you're self-muted.
I'm afraid, is he showing his offline? Can I get a quick minute if I can try to call him?
That's fine. Gina's going to the.
Let me just see. He is signed in. Oh, yeah.
It's showing that he's the presenter.
It does, yeah.
I'm not sure if he's available or not, but if not, I can take over.
I don't mind giving my presentation now if you want to take a few minutes to get Danish's issue sorted out.
Sure, Johnny, why don't you go ahead? In the meantime, I will try to touch base with Danish and try to get back to you.
If that's all right.
Try to get back to the team. That's good. Thank you.
That's okay with us. So we'll temporarily move forward to the last status report, which is the transportation improvement application process update from John.
All right. Let me make sure that you can see my screen.
We see your desktop. There you go. We see it.
Got it.
Yes.
All right, cool. Good afternoon, TAC, Johnny Wong, TPO staff. And I'm here to brief you on some updates to our TIP application process. And I want to cover this exploratory document that we've been working on called the TIP application form. The reason why we decided to come up with an application form is because during this past year's prioritization process, we received a couple projects from some missed agencies that my team misclassified. So it's totally our fault. We're not saying that we're trying to address a problem with you all, but we think that the application form would be a good way, or creating this document would be our best attempt at ensuring that we have all the necessary info that we need to classify, measure, and rank projects according to their expected outcomes. The form is one page, front and back, and it only has 4 sections or parts to it. The first section is your ID, so that we can track the requests that each agency submits to us, and to ensure that we have contact info for each project manager, just in case we are putting together the prioritization list and we realize that, hey, we're missing some info, we know who to contact quickly, rather than having you all circulate a long email thread in order for us to find the right person. So section 1 is pretty basic: name, contact info. The second section is information about the project. All of our partners are pretty good about providing this info in the priority request letters that we receive, but having it recorded and focused in one location will allow us to keep really good track of everything that we receive. So some of the info that we're looking for are the project limits. I have an exemplary or imaginary project written in red font just to show you what kind of info we're looking to receive. So the project limits, the total project cost, or an estimate of it at least, the amount of funding requested, the phase that's seeking funding, whether or not the project has any additional sources of funding, meaning that the thought here is, if we don't prioritize this project, is there another pathway for it to get funded eventually? And lastly, what is the implementing agency? So if the project is a collaboration between one or more agencies, you can put that in the bottom response. The third section is a project description. So we're hoping that this is just a couple sentences that should suffice. And it's an opportunity for you to share as much information with us about the project as possible. The thought behind this is that the more we understand about the project and its benefits, the more effective we can be in helping you go out and find funding and find the appropriate sources to hit up for funding. The example on this slide is actually a pretty common occurrence, wherein the proposed project may have benefits that aren't limited to just one of our investment categories. So the way that the project here is described is part reliability, part safety. And we receive a lot of projects like that. If you all inform us of the anticipated benefits in this way, it will allow us to better triage the data that we're collecting for this project. So let's say that this project were described to us as a safety project. Well, we would never know to look at the reliability improvements that may result from deploying this project, and vice versa. If this were called a smart cities or a reliability project, we would never know to go out and seek out the crash data. So letting us know that there are multiple criteria for us to explore and multiple categories that this could be placed into gives the project a better shot at getting funded, because we can place it in the investment category where it will rank the highest. The next section, section 3, is the project description We're also using this section to address some recommendations coming out of our recently adopted non-discrimination plan. And those recommendations specifically are to recognize the benefits and impacts of our projects on low income and minority communities, and to incorporate equity into our prioritization methodologies, beginning with the tip. So to accomplish this, we're encouraging all of our agency partners to meaningfully explore how a community could be impacted by the projects. And if it's clear that there are negative impacts anticipated for the project, we want to see what the plan is to mitigate that. The last part of section 3 is to share the results of any public outreach that's been done on the project so far. It's totally okay to say no, public outreach has not yet been solicited. That would not in any way be a disqualifier, but it allows us to tell a better story when we're defending the projects that are on the prioritization list. And you'll see in just a few slides why this specific question is kind of important. So that's the first page. The second page of the form is intended for our partners to answer questions that are specific to the type of project that you're wanting prioritized. So based on your responses in the first part of section 3, whether you think this is a Smart Cities, SGR, Vision Zero, or Real Choices project, you scroll down to the appropriate investment category and answer the questions that are listed there. The first category is state of good repair and resilience. And in years past, most of the projects that we prioritize in this category are transit. We never needed to evaluate performance of these projects because we just had an ongoing standard where we would allocate about $4 million in SU funds to bus replacements. Sometimes we would mix it up and give them money for capital repairs. HART, of course, is the primary submitter of projects into this category, but we want to do a better job of incorporating some new performance measures that the Fed has placed upon us. So as an example, we're asking questions like, is the project being submitted listed in the most current transit asset management plan? You all have sat through a presentation on the TAM measures and the TAM targets in the past. This is our attempt at incorporating those measures and targets into this prioritization process. The second question that we're asking you all to answer is what asset class the TAM project affects. That could be equipment, revenue vehicles, service vehicles, infrastructure. I can't recall all of the asset classes, but the transit agency should have that information readily available if they're wanting us to prioritize a project. And then lastly, in state of good repair and resilience, we want to better incorporate resilience. So if the project is stormwater or drainage improvement, the way that you would respond to the question at the bottom is by clicking on the link. It takes you right to the Resilient Tampa Bay study, and you let us know if the road seeking the improvement is listed as high vulnerability, high criticality. For safety projects, we'd like for you to let us know if the corridor is listed in the speed management study priority list that Gina's team recently completed. For smart cities projects, let us know if the project's included in the smart city mobility plan, which is slated for adoption, I think in January of 2022, January or February, sometime around there. For mobility projects, let us know if it's included in the regional multi-use trail map. For major projects, let us know if right-of-way is necessary for construction and which key economic space it will improve access to. So the full title of this program is Major Projects for Economic Growth. We want to be able to better demonstrate that any major capacity projects improve access to those key economic spaces for growth. As I mentioned, the general reason why we're asking for this info and why we want to collect it is so that we can do a better job of classifying and measuring the impact of our priorities. But some of the specific reasons why we chose to update our methodology now is because over the past year, we've had a number of new federal performance measures, and we're required to incorporate those into the TIP. We also need to do a better job of addressing equity in our planning processes, and this is a really easy way to incorporate equity. We're going to refine this over time, but our first crack is simply asking whether these projects have an impact on underserved communities. And then lastly, we're going to use this information to better distribute our grant funds more evenly across investment categories. In this past year, the majority, let me click back for a second so I don't lose you. This past year, the majority of our planning funds or the grant funds that we have access to were put in Vision Zero. We're thinking that we would like to do a more even 25% split across the 4 investment categories. So 25% of our funds going into state of good repair and resilience, 25% in Vision Zero, real choices when not driving, and smart cities. That will amount to between $4 and $5 million per investment category per year. And we think that that is a more fair way of distributing funds. We're going to try to nail all of this down in just a couple months, so it's quite an ambitious timeline. Looking ahead, there are a few milestones that we want to remind you all of for this coming TIP cycle. First thing is that the TIP cycle is going to start earlier this year than last year because the legislative session begins in January. We want to meet with our partners individually around the 3rd week of January. We're going to use that meeting to discuss your new priorities and then get status updates on existing projects that are listed in the TIP priority list. After that meeting, we're going to give you about a month to list and submit your official priority request letters. Remember that each priority request should have an application form filled out for it. After that date, we're going to take the next month or so to collect data, calculate performance for all the projects we receive, and then rank them. And by March 19th, we're going to need to receive the applications if you're planning on submitting any projects for SU, TA, TRIP, SIGP, or SunTrail funding. I'm going to send everyone, all the agencies, a copy of this PowerPoint to use as a guide. You've seen that there are hyperlinks throughout so that you can quickly access the studies and then let us know whether or not they're listed as priorities in speed management, the resiliency study, TAM. I included these slides, these next few slides, just so that everyone is aware of how we're going to be ranking our priorities from now on. And some of this is based on responses that we're going to receive in your application form, and the other part is based on our own data analysis. So for the SGR, State of Good Repair and Resilience projects, we're going to first look at the percent of assets not in a state of good repair, transit assets that is. Classes that have a higher proportion of assets not in a state of good repair will be ranked higher. For resilience projects, they're going to be ranked according to whether or not the corridor is high vulnerability, high criticality. And projects that can answer yes to that question will be ranked high. Vision Zero is going to be based on the average fatal and serious injury crashes per centerline mile. Then whether or not the road is listed on the speed management list. For transit safety projects, they're going to be ranked according to the number of safety events. That measure is us incorporating the PTASP targets, Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan targets, into our methodology. And then lastly, whether the project will facilitate equity in an underserved community. Smart cities is a little complex, it's a little complicated. We've met individually with all of the agencies to discuss the changes specifically to smart cities. Traditional reliability projects like intersection improvements are going to be evaluated according to the same criteria that we've been using for several years. First, average peak period travel time index. Second, average travel delay in minutes per centerline mile. We're going to add this new question about whether or not the project improves conditions for an underserved population. So those are the more traditional reliability projects. We also want to use this investment category to begin funding smart cities tech projects. And again, we've met with the agencies individually. Those projects are going to be ranked according to the smart cities prioritization matrix. If the project being submitted is included in the smart cities vision map, and it's the highest ranking smart cities project, it's going to automatically earn a spot at the top of the smart cities investment category. So that's a very clear pathway for smart cities tech projects to get funded. When we met with the agencies individually, we spoke to them about potentially setting aside $500,000 a year specifically to fund those kind of projects. We actually decided to not go that direction. So we're going to allocate our $4 to $5 million in surface transportation funds to the Smart Cities program overall. And because the Smart Cities tech project will be listed toward the top, that'll be an even bigger pot of funding for those projects to move forward. So we think that it'll work out better for the agencies than the initial idea of setting aside $500K. The next investment category is real choices when not driving, and we're going to be using the same criteria that we used for the past year, which is base year population and job density within a quarter mile of the facility, and with the addition of whether or not the project improves conditions for an underserved population. Lastly, major projects, we're going to be using 2045 job density, 2045 VC ratio, and also adding the question of whether the project facilitates equity. In determining whether or not the project will improve conditions for an underserved population, we're going to rely really heavily on the results of public engagement. So for us to answer that question, we really are going to rely on the results of any engagement that's been done in the community, because a major capacity project doesn't necessarily mean that it's considered an enhancement to the community. We have presented this application form so far in one-on-one meetings to Hillsborough County, and I mentioned it to the City of Tampa the other day. Some of the comments we received so far are to add the prioritization, the TIP prioritization methodology as an appendix to the app form. We're going to do that. I already discussed that with you today. We want to offer a pathway for pavement projects to move forward, and we heard that we need to better coordinate methodologies and data with you all. So I have a meeting scheduled with Hillsborough County, I believe tomorrow or maybe Wednesday, to coordinate our prioritization methodology with their prioritization methodology. And Danny and Alana were the two who asked me about how to move forward pavement rehab projects. And the answer is that there's not really a good way for us to allocate surface transportation funds for that purpose. But a second question that they had was how they can move forward bridge projects, and we will be prioritizing bridge projects if we receive them. And I'd like to open it up to questions and discussion. Let me know what you all think about all these changes. I know it's a lot. Let me know if you think we missed anything, if we need to add anything, or if the prioritization criteria fit.
Okay, then great, Johnny, thank you for that. Do we have comments?
I just want to say thank you, Johnny, for incorporating our comments and our questions. We had a lot of them. And just moving forward, I think that what we talked about was, we have our own methodology for prioritizing projects within our agency. And so when we submit applications, they're likely not going to be on some of the planning documents referenced in the form, but they're still important to the city and to the region. So I just noted that. And I think the conclusion was we'll just describe why it's prioritized in the beginning part of the application. Even though when we submit these applications and then they're reviewed internally, you're gonna see a lot of no's that they haven't been identified in a planning document, so. I don't know if that makes sense, but that was our only concern.
Okay. And that was Danny Jorgensen. It's okay.
Nicole?
Nicole, I see you on screen. Did you have comments you wanted to make?
Yeah, actually, I just kind of wanted to just say to Johnny that all of this is in line. I mean, with, you know, I just feel like these are all awesome steps moving forward and in a vision towards equity. So excellent work, and just really excited to see how this actually rolls out. Really exciting and grateful to hear all of this.
Great, thank you.
I have a quick question, Johnny, which is funny because we work together. But in your example application, there was a possibility that that application could have ranked high or somewhere on a number of different categories. Is your team going to help our implementing customers to figure out maybe where the best place is for it? Like where it can rank higher, not only rank higher, but maybe rank in a category of funding that there's more money in? I don't know. I guess there's just some like gaming. Are you going to game it so that they can get funded?
Yeah, definitely. Whichever investment category they think it could fit into, we'll evaluate according to the criteria. Of course, it's going to have to outcompete the other projects that are listed there, but we will evaluate it over and over again, and we'll do annual check-ins. If we think that there's a good opportunity for it to move up in one investment category, we're going to leave open the possibility that it could move out of Vision Zero, for example, and into smart cities. We're going to try to make this as dynamic a list as possible, because there's some projects that just sit on the list for a very long time because, you know, the benefits aren't necessarily clear, and if it makes sense to move it to a new category, we'll do that. As long as we have the data, I'll add that caveat.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Johnny. I mean, I don't have much at all experience with this, but it certainly, just from a step back, makes a lot of sense that it seems like you're kind of standardizing things, almost like a grant application, to where evaluation would seem a lot more, not certainly want to be easy, but easier than just an open-ended application that you can receive, that one could be 30 pages and one could be 2. Doesn't mean one project's better than the other. So I think it's a smart method to go from a big perspective. You know, certainly a lot of intangibles and so forth. And I mean, a comment for me would be if there's a way that the project could identify efforts they made to minimize impacts to the neighboring communities, especially if they're residential. That would be like, if I was scoring, that would be a little bit of a plus, but I don't know if there's any means to be able to include that in your process now. But that would just be a comment from me personally. But anyway, I think it's a good idea, good project. Do we have any other comments? Okay, thank you very much, Johnny. And I think we're on to going back to our last item, which was the state of the system.
All right, thanks.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm not sure. Just state your name when you start.
Oh, hi, my name is Danish. I'm here with Urban SDK. We were in coordination with Vishaka and her team in creating this state of the system report. So I'm just going to do a quick run through of what exactly the state of system report consists of, and then I'll go through a quick demo that goes through it. So as Vishaka mentioned earlier, we have it just demonstrates performance trends across like a 3-year period from 2018 to 2020. And it includes multiple like measures that relate to infrastructure conditions, resiliency, travel time reliability, and overall mobility within the area. A couple of the data sources that were included in this analysis when we were looking at safety, we pulled data from Signal 4 Analytics, When it was a roadway level of service, we were taking data from FDOT NPM, data from census, and here, which provided speed data and travel time data. For transit, we access the National Transit Database along with GTFS, and also took data from Plain Hillsborough that the TPO provided us. With non-motorized, it was also data that was provided by the TPO. And with infrastructure, we were using the FHWA National Bridge Inventory, along with Plain Hillsborough's pavement condition index data. For emissions, we were using FDOT and their daily delay to determine emissions that were being outputted with CO2, NOx, and VOC. And we also use data from a provider in NASA. It's like a subdivision in NASA with the abbreviations of ORNL-DAAC. The overall performance measures, we broke it down into 6 different categories, like I mentioned, with the data sources: roadway LOS, safety, transit, non-motorized, infrastructure, and emissions. And now I'm going to run through a quick demo of the state of the system report. So each dashboard has 3 different capabilities. So we will have like the overall dashboard under the specific report, which will include measures, a variation of bar charts, pie charts, etc. So in this safety, I'm just going to run through the safety example in detail, and then we could kind of run through the rest later. But we have, rolling average measures that indicate trends and, 5-year trends of, are fatalities increasing, decreasing, are the rates increasing or decreasing? So as you see over here, we see the fatalities on a slow increase, while we see serious injuries on a decrease. And then we also just have like the raw numbers that were reported year by year, along with the rates. And then in addition to that, we also have accessibility in downloading the data itself from the application. So also I forgot to mention that this is a publicly accessible link, and we have different categories listed within the data itself. So if you want to just download the data related to the fatalities in Hillsborough County, we will provide like an ID, timestamp, latitude, longitude, which will indicate the crashes. And you can export this as a CSV or Excel file. And finally, each measure has a mapping component. So if we are looking at the fatalities that occurred within Hillsborough County, we include a map that shows where all the accidents are occurring. We've also included a time scrubber at the bottom that will indicate year-over-year change. So we can see where fatalities are more frequently occurring versus not. And like I mentioned, each report has its own like 3 dashboard, data, and map associated with each. Like I said, we have roadway level of service, transit, non-motorized. One of the ones that were included in the non-motorized was non-motorized accessibility. So when you go to the accessibility, as per Vishaka and her team's request, we included a map that would show sidewalks in association to where the schools are located, hospitals, and grocery stores. So in yellow, you will see schools. In red, you will see hospitals, and in green, you'll see where all the grocery stores are located. And we can see where the sidewalks are relevant to those locations in Hillsborough County. We've also included infrastructure for pavement conditions and bridge conditions. We're able to see those on a map as well. So looking at the pavement condition index in Hillsborough County, we're able to do that. And finally, we have emissions. We can see that there's a slow increase in emissions over the years. We only had data provided up to 2017. And then finally, we also have emissions from automobiles. This is just an estimate that's taken from daily hours of delay that's provided by FDOT. And then we calculate like short ton, and we assign an emission cost to each different type of emission type. So we have carbon dioxide, volatile organic compounds, and nitrogen oxides, and we can see the distribution of that. And that sort of covers everything I have included in the demo. We also do have travel time reliability included as well. So we have passenger travel time at AM and PM peaks, also included with freight travel time at AM and PM peaks as well. And that pretty much covers the entire state of the system report that we've built so far for Plain Hillsborough. And you all have any questions?
Thanks. Do we have any questions? Was that?
Did you say that this was live for us to access already?
Yes, we do have a publicly accessible link.
Do you know when they'll be getting emissions data that's newer than 2017?
Sorry, what was that?
When you would have access to emissions data that was more recent than 2017?
It really, so we're currently using an open data provider that's, I think I mentioned earlier, it was a subset of NASA, and I've been kind of monitoring them for the last couple months, waiting for them to upload their recent updates to that data source, and I haven't seen any. So I'm still waiting on that. But they do provide on-road emissions at the census tract level.
Okay, I'm just curious if they're going to capture a reduction for 2020, but that data probably won't be out for quite a while. But
yeah.
Okay. Do we have any? I mean, for me, one thing I'll just say that I really liked was the map aspect. I mean, certainly don't like to see fatalities, but I think it's telling when you can see injuries and fatalities on a map and where they're grouped. So I think that's a good function that you added. Do we have any other comments or questions from the committee? Okay. All right. I guess that's it. So I appreciate you presenting for us today.
No problem.
Excuse me, Gina, I just wanted to reiterate that this is just a status update, what you saw now. And like I said, we are building the database, and this has the capability of adding any more data as per our requirements and as per the needs. So we will be coming back with a final approval in the next month or so to all the committees and the board. So at this time, I just wanted to introduce you all this, and then you can probably look into the link and see if, how it works, and if you have any suggestions, we can always incorporate that. This is Vishaka again. So just wanted to remind you that we always have room for improvement in this.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, everyone's encouraged to look through it, and if you have any suggestions, bring them forward, and we can also talk about.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishaka. Okay, it covers all scheduled items. Is there any old or new business that anybody would like to bring up? All right, hearing none, we'll move towards adjournment. The next meeting is on November 1st, I believe. Yes. So we will look forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye, everybody.
The best part of the job is hitting the gavel. I don't even have to.